So in the past 3 to 4 weeks, we've seen Bitcoin push all the way up to 80K. Now it fell back down, it's all the way at 60K. It hit a low of almost 58, 59. And in this video, I'm gonna show you the technical indicators that are actually suggesting we might be close to a low and why this is a good opportunity, specifically for me, trying to turn 10K into 100K. But just in general, I'm going to show you the history and why exactly these signals are proving to be good bottom signals. If you enjoy videos like this where I go deeper into the technicals and I talk about what I'm doing personally, and you find value in videos like this, subscribe down below. I post videos like this every Monday, every week. I try and be consistent. And the goal of this channel is to share my journey with you. So subscribe and follow along if you like videos like this. Now let's get into it. So first part of this video, I want to actually show exactly my general structure in terms of the long term. Now, the 4-year cycle within Bitcoin has been the persistent narrative, and essentially my perspective is that if something isn't broke, don't try and fix it. If something seems to persist and it has a historical track record, you go with the trend until it says otherwise, until there's a reason to change your mind. And I plotted out exactly how I view the 4-year cycle and what Bitcoin has behaviorally done, right? Obviously, the past doesn't always mean future performance, like things can change and there can always be a shift, but essentially I'm going with the history is leading my decisions, right? So when we look at the charts, and why this is so important is first we see that in Bitcoin's initial history, there isn't much pattern. You can't get 1 to 2 data points to draw a line, so you need a bit more time. And as you see time goes on, we have a year or 2 years of parabolic running up, then we have a year of downward movement, a year of sideways consolidation, or basically the floor where it finds its bottom. And then we have 2-year parabolic run, we have a year in the bear market, we have another year of sideways movement, 2 years up, and you can kind of see the general pattern. Year down, year sideways, 2 years up, and now we're currently in the year down. So if we did nothing else, if we just looked at patterns, I just made colored boxes here, we can see that there's a very clear pattern. And if historically you had just bought in the red, or if you had bought in the red or yellow areas, you would be making good money. You'd be buying at correct times. These would be good times to invest. And this to me is layer number 1 of what I look at to see, okay, is Bitcoin doing what it previously does? If so, what signals then lead to understanding where a top is and where a bottom is? So I'm looking at first the general pattern. And in looking at this general pattern, it's not something of exact technical accuracy. It's something more of general pattern. I'm looking at the big picture over its 10, almost 20 years Bitcoin's been around. What is it doing in that time? That's what I'm looking at. Now, what we can do is look more deeper into each cycle, okay? And when I look at each cycle, first, we can see that when I add the 200-week moving average, so we'll go into the weekly chart, we can see that for each cycle, we have periods where it touches the 200-week moving average. This is typically where the bottom is and where it consolidates. And then we see an extension above, okay? So then we have a large extension above. We can see this is a very large gap. Then as things start to roll over, they slow down and fall. We see it comes down to the 200-week moving average within that cycle. That seems like a good time to buy. Same exact thing. We see an extension above the 200-week moving average. Then we see a touch or drop below, great time to buy. And then extension above, and so on, right? Now, we're currently at a point where we're touching the 200-week moving average. Now, historically, what would that mean? Clearly, in previous cycles, that means you want to be accumulating, you want to be buying. Now, another indicator I use is the Gaussian channel, this one on the weekly. So we can see, same thing, we have our 2-year push up. It's all the Gaussian channel is green during this time, then we can see a flip to red. Typically a couple weeks to about a month or two later, we see our first bottom, and then we have obviously another bottom, and then we can see the flip green typically leads to that runoff into the parabolic move. Same exact thing, we see starts to fall down, flips red, couple weeks to month or two later, we have our bottom, and then we can see flip green, price starts to move up in that parabolic fashion, or just up in general. And then same thing here, we can see flip to red, we have our bottom or bottom area, and then flip to green, this is when the run starts. And what are we seeing now? Basically nothing different. Is we have a break into the red. This could be, if given historical context and the fashion that it moves, we have a month to 2 to 3 after we see our bottom, which this bottom also, once it flipped red, hit the 200-week moving average. Once it flipped red, hit the 200-week. Once it flipped red, hit the 200-week. And we are exactly there now, right? Flipped red, hit the 200-week. Now, what I've shown you just now is the moving average, the Gaussian channel, which is also a type of moving average. And then I've plotted out basic boxes to see how I view the cycle. Now, all of this could be nothing, all of this could mean nothing, and we could just see price keep falling, or it reverses from here and goes up to the moon. We don't know, but what I'm showing is that historically, what this has meant has been the bottom. Now, I'm not saying we've bottomed right now and we're gonna go up from here. We could have another 6 months of sideways to down movement, which we've seen historically here, right? We hit the 200-week, flipped red, we're in the red box. And we can see before we started actually moving up, it was another 200-ish days, right? And then same thing here, we have a drop into the red. Now we can see there's this push up, but from that point, let's say where it flips green, we had many months, or basically a year, where it just moved sideways or trended down for a little bit. This is the COVID crash, so a little skewed data, but same thing here. Flip red, touch a 200-week. We have another 280 days before we start moving up. So what I'm showing you now, and where this plays into my personal decision, and I'm gonna show you at the end of the video my portfolio and where it's all at, but essentially where we are is the start of the golden zone, or the perfect buying zone, where you wanna accumulate as much as you can. Now, if from here we see prices go into the 50, maybe 45 area, that would be the time where you sell one of your siblings, you start stripping or doing whatever you can to get some extra cash, because if you can buy in that area, you will seem like a superhero investor. You will be multiple times richer at the top, and that's essentially what I'm waiting for and looking for. Now I also want to go quickly into the fear and greed index. We can also see that typically at bottoms in, like, what was it, I think 2022 we bottomed, 2018 I think we also bottomed, and now in 2026, I may have got those numbers wrong because I can't see the charts, but essentially anytime people are fearful, these are typically bottom signals. Anytime people are really greedy, I would start looking at exiting, because the prices are typically in the euphoria phase, and people are normally not thinking rationally. You want to be greedy when others are fearful, feel fearful when others are greedy. So we're at pretty low levels, or sorry, high levels of fear, low levels of greed, which means now is kind of the time, sentiment-wise, to be buying rather than selling. So I didn't really structure this video very specifically. I'm kind of just talking about what I'm seeing in the charts and how I kind of interpret this stuff. I'm not the biggest person on technical analysis, but I do look at the long-term trends of But I do look at the long-term trends and I plot out certain structures and how I see them. Now, all of this data could be useless and I could just be speculating on historical patterns and just basic pattern recognition. I'm not going to act like this is the most in-depth analysis and I'm using certain metrics and I'm doing like super deep stuff. But in a sense, and to be honest, I do my best to keep it simple when it comes to investing. There's a lot of noise and news and metrics and all this stuff that can complicate everything. But my simple strategy is find a slight edge when prices are undervalued and understand when prices are overvalued and just build the stack as big as you can over a longer time frame. That's essentially my strategy. So now that I've showed you the charts, I'm going to go into my actual portfolio. And quickly before we do that, I want to mention I have a link to Wealthsimple. If you're looking for just a bank in general or a brokerage to start investing, then I seriously suggest Wealthsimple if you're in Canada. And then I also have a link to Trezor down below if you're looking to cold storage your own Bitcoin, because not your keys, not your coins. I would suggest getting self-custody. So now into my portfolio. So we're currently down around $315-ish, 314, but very good news because my limit order hit at $25. We can see just here, $25, which was very good for getting my average cost down. Now, I still currently have another 2,000 in a limit order for the $20 price level for IBIT. Currently, it's at 26, so getting it at 25 was a nice little dip, about a significant amount. And then if it goes down to 20, I'll obviously scoop up more then. And I might actually up my DCA. I currently have $2,250 left in just cash. So that would be around 2 months and 1 week of cash I have still able to DCA, and then another 2,000 in that limit order. So right now I'm actually very satisfied with my positioning. This is the first time in a bit where I have less cash than I do IBIT. So the accumulation is going well, prices are falling, and I want this to be a lesson in general, is that I've been doing this for over 100 days, and for those basic 100 days, like if we really look at it, price was basically flat. I mean, it was going up a little bit, it was down at some times, and essentially I've done nothing, I've changed nothing within that time. And I think what most people need to do with their investments, and not financial advice, I'm just saying this is what I do and this is what helps me, is that you set a plan at the start and you really do your due diligence to set up that plan. And then once you're ready, once you have things fleshed out, once you've thought of every variable and possibility and all this stuff, then what you should do is execute that plan without letting your emotions sway you one way or the other. There was so many times where Bitcoin was going up and I thought to myself, well, I still have 8,000 in cash and I only have 2,000 IBIT, and I really wanted to buy more, but I held strong, price fell further, and my limit orders were able to buy more at lower prices. So I saved myself the hassle of seeing even further drawdown and also accumulating more. So if you appreciate the fact that I'm being transparent with my investments, if you appreciate the fact that I'm sharing the things I know and I'm learning alongside you, please follow. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling in these times, what you're doing, what signals you're seeing, because obviously I'd love to learn from any of you. So thank you for watching. Till next time, peace.